So the other day I went to the theater to watch the latest movie in the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel movies, Madam Web. And I actually really enjoyed it. Not because it was good, but because I knew it was going to be bad. Now I know that it might sound a little bit weird for me to sit here and say that I really enjoyed watching Madam Web, when just the other week I made a video about being utterly disappointed by Argylle, which in many ways is a better film, a more coherent film. And sure, that is maybe kinda unfair, but the thing is, I just expected so much more from Argylle. When I watched the first trailer for Madam Web, I instantly knew that this film was going to be an absolute disaster. Everyone knew. That trailer alone became a meme. That infamous line of,
"He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died."
That very clearly communicated that this was going to be an over-explained, badly put together, run-of-the-mill piece of crap superhero movie. And that was exactly what we got. This was so not a movie that was made because anyone felt like telling this story or had a connection with these characters that they wanted to explore. This was a movie that was made because Sony dug into the characters they have the rights to and just fished something out and said, well, maybe we can make some money off of this shit. I went into this movie expecting to roll my eyes at every other line. And you know what? That was exactly what I did. Alright, so what is this film about? Well, Dakota Johnson plays Cassie Webb, who is a paramedic and drives an ambulance in New York City like a maniac. One day she falls off a bridge, drowns, and discovers that she actually has magic spider powers and that she can see into the future. In the meantime, there is a bad guy named Ezekiel Sims who was with Cassie's mother when she was researching spiders in the Amazon right before she died. And he stole the magic spider from the Amazon and basically got Spider-Man powers. He does not have the power to see into the future, though he does have a recurring nightmare about these three women who are going to kill him. Now, he doesn't actually know what these women look like, because they're all wearing costumes, like superheroes. But he has some special NSA, FBI kind of technology that can somehow remove the masks and de-age the women to what they'll look like today, so he has perfect images of them and know exactly what they look like. Yeah, that doesn't make sense at all, but you'll just have to live with that. He then sets out to kill these three girls before they grow up and are able to kill him. Now Cassie, Dakota Johnson's character, has a vision of the future that Ezekiel Sims is going to kill these three innocent girls. And she then feels like she has to try and save them. And she does this by basically kidnapping them and leaving them in a forest. None of these girls know each other. They've all had some sort of run-in with Cassie, though that doesn't mean anything. The rest of the movie then becomes Cassie trying to figure out what the hell is going on with her powers, why does she have these powers, and who is this weird guy trying to kill these girls, while these girls sit around doing nothing or do something stupid so that they can be noticed and the bad guy can come to try and kill them. And that's basically it. That's the movie, that's the plot. Now there is a whole side story about Cassie's partner, who is Ben Parker. Yes, Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, played by Adam Scott. Now I believe Mary Parker is his sister in this movie, and that doesn't make sense because in the comics traditionally Ben Parker has been the brother of Richard Parker, who is Spider-Man's dad, but he doesn't show up at all in this movie, so I guess it just made sense to make him the brother of Mary Parker instead, who is in this film and who is pregnant with a little boy. And I wonder what that little boy is going to be called. There are constantly references to Peter Parker and Spider-Man and what is going to happen in the future of this universe when Peter Parker is born and is subsequently bitten by a spider, and when Uncle Ben is going to become his surrogate father and is going to die. And there are so many nods and winks to camera about things that we as an audience know is going to happen in the future because we've seen a Spider-Man movie before. And it's ridiculous. It is so ridiculous because they never actually say anything. They never actually say Spider-Man. They never actually say Peter Parker. They just constantly reference Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And as an audience member, you just sit there and think, just say it. Everything else in this movie is so explicitly told that why not just say that he's Peter Parker? Anyways, moving on. For some reason in this movie, the main character, Cassie, who has taken on this responsibility of taking care of these girls, constantly just leaves them for themselves. Like, she's with them for a few hours and then she just leaves them and goes to look in her exposition book to see what she's going to do next, and then comes back to them being almost killed. And there's also something about the amount of time she leaves them alone each time seems to be like roughly the same, in that the same things happen each time she leaves them. Like, they're safe, just stay here. She then goes off, has a new exposition dump, and then she comes back and they're almost being killed. And it doesn't matter whether she just nips home to her own apartment to look in a book, or she takes a trip all the way to Peru. It feels like she's only gone for like a couple of hours each time. And these 3 girls that she has to take care of, they are completely useless. They can't do anything for themselves. They only get into trouble. They only have one thing that they do at the end of the film, and the setup for that is ridiculously obvious. It's like Cassie sits them down to say, this is how you are going to save my life at the end of this movie. And we as the audience just sit there and think, well, this is probably how they're going to save her life at the end of the movie. It is so painfully obvious. And in that same vein, no one actually ever does any like superhero stuff. They never actually put on the costumes and do the Spider-Man things. And that's not to say that every movie in a superhero universe has to be like this over-the-top comic book superhero stuff kind of movie. You can just make a movie that's more low-key and where the characters are real people in a world where superheroes exist. Like Captain America: The Winter Soldier is a great example of a movie that isn't really about the whole superhero thing. It is more of a spy movie. It's just set in a world of superheroes. But for this movie, from the trailers and everything that we were told about it, and all of the behind the scenes stuff where Sydney Sweeney talks about how she was in the costume and she was hanging upside down, you would have thought that we would actually get to see some of that in this movie, and you barely see any of it. Now, like I mentioned, this movie takes place before Spider-Man is born, so it takes place in the past. And they very clearly state that the movie takes place in 2003. That's like the first thing you're told when the movie starts. But when you state so clearly that the movie takes place in this particular year, you basically invite people to try and find every little thing that doesn't belong in that time. Like, for instance, this movie takes place in 2003, but in one of the scenes that is in the trailer, there's a guy in the train playing on a PSP, which wasn't released before 2004 and didn't come to the US till 2005. That's just one very obvious example, but there are tons of these inconsistencies in this movie. With that said though, I think the biggest problem that this film has is the villain of the film, Ezekiel Sims. And it's not because I think the actor is bad, it's just that none of the lines that we hear that character say in the film were actually said on set. Everything he says is dubbed over, and it is so obvious. Like in every scene he's in, you only actually get to see him say like 2 words before it cuts away and everything else he says is said off camera. They've so clearly cut around us seeing his mouth actually move so that we couldn't tell that what he was saying didn't match his lip movements. And I personally find that absolutely hilarious. I think it's a sign that this movie was originally supposed to be something completely different. What he actually recorded on set must have been a completely different script. I think they basically wrote a new movie in post. But other than the fact that he is so obviously dubbed over, I just think he's a badly written character. We never really learn his motivation. We don't really know why he was after this super spider that Cassie's mom was researching in the Amazon right before she died. And the whole plan he has to kill these 3 girls doesn't really make sense. Now, as if all of this wasn't bad enough, this movie also goes out of its way to make Spider-Man less important, to make Spider-Man less special. Like I said, the villain steals a spider that gives him Spider-Man powers. The only Spider-Man thing that he can't do is the webs, but he can do all of the other Spider-Man powers. And there's a whole tribe of people in the Amazon that has Spider-Man powers. So what makes Spider-Man special? What makes the radioactive spider that bites Peter Parker special? Nothing. It's so weird to think that in this universe, years in the future, there will be a hero with the exact same powers as the villain who goes around terrorizing people in the same city. And while I can laugh at most of the other bad things that I've mentioned already, this one seems a little bit worse. This seems like it tries to take away from the good Spider-Man movies in order to tell this bad story. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Something that actually did really make me laugh at the end of the movie is the fact that this movie doesn't shy away from the product placement at all. The Pepsi sponsorship for this movie is just so ham-fisted. The villain is literally defeated by the Pepsi sponsorship. That scene really had me laughing out loud in the theater. Alright, so in conclusion, Madam Web is a bad movie. It might be the worst movie that I've seen this year so far. But because I had lowered my expectations and I went into this movie knowing that what I was going to see was bad, I really enjoyed watching this movie. But let me just say, I cannot recommend that you spend money on going to the theater to watch this movie. If you really want to watch this movie and laugh at it, just wait till you can watch it at home. Invite some friends over and make a game out of it or something like that. But don't spend your money on seeing it in theaters. I think what I really liked was that I've seen a lot of movies lately where it was very clear that this was the movie they set out to make. They had a vision, they stuck to it, and they made exactly the movie they wanted to make. And sometimes that is amazing, but other times you're just left feeling like, I don't know, maybe I didn't understand this, or maybe I just didn't like it. I don't know. But with Madam Web, it's so clear that no one wanted to make this movie. This is a clear example of too many cooks, too many people who wanted different things. But that just makes it so much easier to make fun of the movie and tell everyone that this was a bad movie. Anyways, I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Have you actually spent your own money on watching this film? If so, was there anything that you think was good about this film? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want more videos from me. But with that said, that's pretty much all I had for you today. My name is Martin Riise. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care and so long.